Hello everyone, and tonight we are reading The Rise of Kyoshi. Now, for all you guys out there, I am a huge fan of Avatar The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. So when this came out, I was ecstatic. Tonight I'm only going to read the first chapter, titled The Test, because battery time and whatnot. So, I hope you guys enjoy. Yokai Port was a town easy to overlook. Situated at the edge of the Whitetail Strait, it could have been a major restocking point for ships, leaving one of the many harbors that supplied Amashu. But the strong, reliable prevailing winds made it easy to overlook and cost-effective for southbound merchants to cruise right past it and reach Shimson, Big Island in a straight shot. Jianzhu wondered if the locals knew or cared that ships laden with riches sailed tantalizingly close by, while they were stuck elbows deep in the cavity of another elephant koi. Only a quirk of fate and weather kept piles of gold, spices, and precious books and scrolls from landing on their doorstep. Instead, their lot was fish guts, a wealth of maws and gills. The landward side was even less promising. The soil of the peninsula grew thin and rocky as it extended further into the sea. It had disturbed Jianzhu to see crop fields so meager and balding as he rode through the countryside into town for the first time. The farmland lacked the wild volcanic abundance of Makapu Valley, or the carefully ordered productivity of Ba Sing Se's outer ring, where growth bent to the exacting will of the king's planners. Here a farmer would have to be grateful for whatever sustenance he could pull from the dirt. The settlement lay at the intersection of three different nations, earth, air, and water, yet none had ever laid much of a claim to it. The conflicts of the outside world had little impact on daily life for Yokaians. To them, the ravages of the Yellow Neck uprising in the deep interior of the Earth Kingdom were a less interesting story than the wayward flying bison had gone loose from the air temple and knocked the thatching off a few roofs last week. Despite being seagoers, they probably couldn't name any of the dreaded pirate leaders carving up the eastern waters in open defiance of Ba Sing Se's navy. All in all, Yokai Port might as well not have been on the map, which meant for Jianzhu and Kel Sing's desperate, sacrilegious little experiment, it was perfect. Sorry if I butcher any words, Jianzhu trudged uphill in the wet, mucky snowfall, his neck prickling from the bundled straw cloak around his shoulders. He passed the wooden pillar that marked the spiritual center of this village, without sparing it a glance. There was nothing on the sides or top of it. It was just a bare log driven upright into the ground, and a circular courtyard. It wasn't carved with any decorations, which seemed lazy for a town where nearly every adult had a working knowledge of carpentry. There, the post grudgingly said to any nearby spirits, "Hope you're happy." Weathered houses lined the broad, eroded avenue, poking steeply into the air like spear points. His destination was the larger two-story meeting hall at the inn. Kel Sing had set up shop there yesterday, saying he needed as much floor space as possible for the test. He'd also claimed that the location enjoyed such auspicious wind currents. Using the very solemn and holy method of licking his finger and holding it up in the air. Whatever helped, Jianzhu said a quick prayer to the guardian of the divine log as he pulled off his snow boots, laid them on the porch, and ducked through the door curtains. The interior of the hall was surprisingly large, with far corners draped in shadow and thick planked walls cut from what must have been truly massive trees. The air smelled of resin. 10 very long, very faded yellow claws stretched across the worn floorboards. A row of toys lay on each one, evenly spaced like a seedbed. A bison whistle, a wicker ball, a misshapen blob that might have been a stuffed turtle duck, a coiled whalebone spring. One of those flappy drums that made noise as you spun it back and forth between your palms. The toys looked as worn and beaten as the outside of this building. Kalsang knelt at the far end of the cloths. The airbender monk was busy placing more knickknacks with a carefulness and precision that rivaled an acupuncturist setting their needles. As if it mattered whether the miniature boat sailed east or west. He stayed on his hands and knees, shuffling his great bulk sideways, his billowing orange robes and wiry black beard hanging so low they made another sweep over a floor that had already been scrubbed clean. I didn't know there were so many toys, Jaenzu said to his old friend. He spotted a large white marble that looked too close to the edge of the fabric and, with a graceful extension of his wrist, levitated it with airbending in front of Kalsing. It hovered like a fly, waiting for his attention. Kalsing didn't even look up as he plucked the marble out of the air and put it right back where it had started. There's thousands. I'd like to ask you to help, but you wouldn't do it right. Jaenzu's head hurt at the statement. At this point, they were well past doing it right. How did you change? I bet Yori's mind about giving you the relics. The same way you convinced Liu Beifong to let us administer the air nomad test in the Earth cycle. Kalsing said calmly as he re-centered a wooden top. I didn't. Like a certain friend of theirs from the Water Tribe always said, it was better to ask for forgiveness than wait for permission. As far as Jaenzu was concerned, the time of waiting had long since passed. When Avatar Kurik, the keeper of balance and peace in the world, the bridge between spirits and humans, passed away at the ripe old age of 33. 33! The only time Kurik had ever been early for anything. It became the duty of his friends, his teachers, and other prominent benders to find a new avatar, reincarnated into the next nation of the elemental cycle: earth, fire, air, and water, and then earth again, in order as unchanging as the seasons. A process stretching back nearly 1,000 generations before Kurik, and the one that would hopefully continue for 1,000 more. Except this time it wasn't working. It had been 7 years since Kurik's death, 7 years of fruitless searching. Jaenzu had poured every available record from the four nations, going back hundreds of years, and the hunt for the Avatar had never faltered like this in a documented history. It had been... No one knew why, though. Reverend elders traded guesses behind closed doors. The world was impure and had been abandoned by the spirits. The Earth Kingdom lacked cohesion. Maybe it was the Water Tribes and the Poles that needed to unify. The airbenders had to come down from their mountains and get their hands dirty instead of preaching. The debate went on and on. Jaenzu cared less about apportioning blame and more about the fact that he and Kalsang had let down their friend again. The only serious decree of Kurik's before he departed from the living was that his closest companions find the next avatar and do right by them. So far they'd failed spectacularly. Right now, there should have been a happy, burbling 7-year-old Earth avatar in the care of their loving family, being watched over by a collection of the best, wisest benders of the world. A child in the midst of being prepared for the assumption of their duties at the age of 16. Instead, there was a gaping void that grew more dangerous by the day. Jaenzu and the other masters did their best to keep the missing avatar a secret, but it was no use. The cruel, the power-hungry, the lawless people, who normally had the most to fear from the avatar, were starting to feel like scales shifting in their favor. Like sand sharks responding to the slightest vibrations of pure instinct, they tested their limits, probed new grounds. Time was running out. Kalsing finished getting up when the noon gong struck. The sun was high enough to melt snow off the roof, and the dripping flow of water pattered on the ground like a light rain. The silhouettes of the villagers and their children, queuing up for the test, could have been seen outside through the paper-screened windows. The air was full of excited chatter. Normal waiting, Jianzi thought. This happens now. Sorry, I have asthma, so it takes a while for me to, get my breath up. Earth avatars were traditionally identified by directional geomancy, a series of rituals designed to winnow through the largest and most populous of the four nations as efficiently as possible. Each time a special set of bone trigrams was cast and interpreted by the earthbending masters. Half the Earth Kingdom was ruled out as the location of the newborn avatar, when from the remaining territory another half and then another half again. The possible locations were kept shrinking until the searchers were brought to the doorstep of the Earth Avatar child. It was a quick way to cover ground and entirely fitting to the earthbending state of mind. Question of logistics. Similar to the point of being brutal. It normally worked on the first try. Jianzhu had been part of expeditions sent by the bones to barren fields, empty gem caverns below Ba Sing Se, patch of the Saiwang Desert, so dry that not even the sandbenders bothered with it. Liu Beifong had read the trigrams. King Buro of Mashu gave it a shot. Nalayo the gardener took her turn. The masters worked their way down through the earthbending hierarchy, till Jianzhu racked up his fair share of the misses as well. His friendship with Kurik brought him no special privileges when it came to the next avatar. After the last attempt had placed him on an iceberg in the North Pole, with only turtle seals as potential candidates, Jianzhu became open to radical suggestions. A drunken commiseration with Kelsang spawned a promising new idea. If the ways of the Earth Kingdom weren't working, why not try another nation's method? After all, wasn't the Avatar the only bender of all four elements and honorary citizen of the entire world? That was why the two of them were wiping their noses with tradition and trying the air nomad way of identifying the Avatar. Yokoya would be a practice run, a safe place from the turmoil of land and sea, where they could take notes and fix problems. If Yokoya went smoothly, they could convince their elders to expand the test farther throughout the Earth Kingdom. The air nomad's method was simple, in theory. Out of the many toys laid out, only 4 belonged to avatars of eras gone by. Each 7-year-old child of the village would be brought in and presented with a dazzling array of playthings. The one who was drawn to the 4 potential toys in remembrance of their past lives was the Avatar Reborn. A process as elegant and harmonious as the Abrams themselves. In theory. In practice, it was chaos, pure and unhinged. It was a disaster like the likes of which the 4 nations had never witnessed. Jianzhu hadn't thought of what might happen after the children who failed the tests were told to leave their selections behind and make room for the next candidate. The tears, the wailing, the screaming, trying to get toys away from kids who had only moments before been promised they could have their pick. There was no force in existence stronger than a child's righteous fury at being robbed. The parents were worse. Maybe air nomad characters handled the rejection of their young ones with grace and humility, but families in other nations weren't made up of monks and nuns, especially in the Earth Kingdom, where all bets were off once it came to blood ties. Villagers whom he'd shared friendly greetings with in the days leading up to the test became snarling canyon crawlers. Once they'd been told that their precious little Jay or Mirai was not in fact the most important child in the world, as they'd secretly known all along. More than a few swore up and down that they'd seen their offspring would play with the invisible spirits or bend earth and air at the same time. Kelsang would push them back gently. Are you sure your child wasn't earthbending during a normal breeze? Are you sure the baby wasn't simply playing? Some couldn't take a hint, especially the village captain. As soon as they'd passed over her daughter Ayoma, or something, she'd given them a look of utter contempt and demand to see a higher-ranking master. Sorry, Lady Jianzhu thought, after Kelsang spent nearly 10 minutes taking her down. We can't all be special. For the last time, I'm not negotiating a salary with you, Jianzhu shouted in the face of a particular blunt farmer. Being the Avatar is not a paid position. The stocky man shrugged. Sounds like a waste of time then. I'll take my child and go. At the corner of his eye, Jayanzu caught Kelsing frantically waving his hands, making a cut-off sign at the neck. The little girl had wandered over to the whirly flying toy that had once entertained an ancient Avatar and was staring at it intently. Huh. They weren't intending to get a genuine result today. But picking the first item correctly was already improbable. Too improbable to risk stopping now. Okay, Jayanzu said. This would have to come out of his own pocket. 50 silvers a year if she's the Avatar. 65 silvers a year if she's the Avatar, and 10 if she's not. Why would I pay you if she's not the Avatar? Jayanzu roared. Kelsing coughed and thumped loudly on the floor. The girl had picked up the whirligig and was eyeing the drum. 2 of the 4 correct out of thousands. Holy shoe. I mean, of course, Jayanzu said quickly. Deal. They shook hands. It would be ironic, a prank worthy of Kurik's sense of humor, to have his reincarnation be found as a result of peasants' greed. And the very last child in line for testing, to boot, Jayanzu nearly chuckled. Now the girl had the drum in her arms as well. She walked over to a stuffed hog monkey. Kelsing was beside himself with excitement, his neck threatening to burst through the wooden beads wrapped around it. Jayanzu felt lightheaded. Hope bashed his ribcage, begging to be let out after so many years trapped inside. The girl wound up her foot and stomped on the stuffed animal as hard as she could. Die! She screamed in her tiny little treble. She ground it under her feet, the stitches audibly rippling. The light went out of Kurik's face. She looked like he'd witnessed the murder. 10 silvers, the farmer said. Get out. Jayanzu snapped. Come on, Susie, the farmer said. Let's go. After releasing the other toys away from the butcher of the hog monkeys, he scooped the girl up and walked out the door. The whole escapade, nothing but a business transaction. In doing so, he nearly bawled over another child who'd been spying on the proceedings from the outside. Hey, Jayanzu said, you forgot your other daughter. That one ain't mine, the farmer said as he thumped down the steps into the street. That one ain't anyone's. An orphan, then? Jayanzu hadn't spotted the unchaperoned girl until around town the days before. But maybe he'd glossed over her, thinking she was too old to be a candidate. She was much, much taller than any of the other children who'd been brought in by their parents. As Jayanzu walked over to examine what he'd missed, the girl quavered, threatening to flee, but her curiosity won over her fright. She remained where she was. Underfed, Jayanzu thought, with a frown as he looked over the girl. Hollow cheeks and cracked lips. And definitely an orphan. He'd seen hundreds of children like her in the provinces, where outlaw Lyofe ran unchecked. Their parents slain by whatever bandit group was ascendant in the territory. She must have wandered far into the relatively peaceable area of yokai. Upon hearing about the Avatar's test, the families of the village had dressed their eligible children in the finest garments as if it were a festival day. But this child was wearing a threadbare coat with her elbows poking through the holes in the sleeves. Her oversized feet threatened to burst the straps of her 2 small sandals. None of the local farmers were feeding or clothing her. Kelsang, who despite his fearsome appearance was always bare with children, joined them and stooped down. With a smile, he transformed from an intimidating orange mountain into a giant-sized version of the stuffed toys behind him. Why, hello there, he said, putting on an extra layer of friendliness into his booming rumble. What's your name? The girl took a long, guarded moment, sizing them up. Kyoshi, she whispered. Her eyebrows nodded as if revealing her name was a painful concession. Kyoshi took in her tired state and avoided the subject of her parents for now. Kyoshi, would you like a toy? Are you sure she isn't too old? Jayanzu said. She's bigger than some of the teenagers. Hush you, Kelsang said. He made a sweeping gesture at the hall festooned with relics, for Kyoshi's benefit. The unveiling of so many playthings at once had an entrancing effect on most of the children, but Kyoshi didn't gasp or smile or move a muscle. Instead, she maintained eye contact with Kelsang until he blinked. As quick as a whip, she scampered by him, snagged an object off the floor, and ran back to where she was sitting on the porch. She gauged Kelsing and Jianzu for their response as intently as they watched her. Kelsing glanced at Jianzu and tilted his head at the clay turtle Kyoshi clutched to her chest. Once of the four true relics. Not a single candidate had come anywhere near it today. They should have been as excited for her as they'd been for evil little Susie. But Jianzu's heart was clouded with doubt. It was hard to believe they'd been so lucky after the previous head fake. Good choice, Kelsing said. But I got a surprise for you. You can have 3 more. 4 whole toys to yourself. Wouldn't you like that? Jianzu sensed a shift in the girl's stance, a tremor in her foundation that was obvious through the wooden floorboards. Yes, she would like 3 more toys, very much. What child wouldn't? But in her mind the promise of more was dangerous, a lie designed to hurt her. If she loosened her grip on the single prize she held right now, she would end up with nothing, punished for believing in the kindness of this stranger. Kyoshi shook her head, her knuckles whitened around the toy turtle. It's okay, Kelsing said. You don't have to put that down. That's the whole point. You can choose different. Hey! The girl took a step back and then another, and then, before they could react, she was sprinting down the hill with the one-of-a-kind, centuries-old avatar relic in her head. Halfway along the street, she took a sharp turn like an experienced fugitive, throwing off a pursuer, and disappeared in the space between the 2 houses. Jianzu closed his eyelids against the sun. The light came through them in scarlet blots. He could feel his own pulse. His mind was somewhere else right now. Instead of Yokkaya, he stood in the center of an unnamed village, deep in the interior of the Earth Kingdom, newly liberated by Zhu Ping An and the Yellow Necks. In this waking dream, the stench of rotting flesh soaked through his clothes, and the cries of survivors haunted the wind. Next to him, an official messenger who had been carried there by palanquin read from a scroll, spending minute after minute listening to the Earth King's honorifics, only to end by telling Jianzu that reinforcements from his Majesty's army would not be coming to help. He tried to shake it free of the memory, but the past had set its jagged hooks into him. Now he sat at a negotiating table made of pure ice. On the other side was Tulok, lord of the Fifth Nation pirates. The elderly corsair laughed his consumptive laugh at the notion that he might honor his grandfather's promise to leave the southern coastlines of the continent in peace. His convulsions spattered blood and phlegm over the accords drafted by Avatar Yang Chen in her own Holy Land, while his daughter, the lieutenant, watched by his side, her soulless gaze boring into Jianzu, like he was so much prey. In these times, and in many others, he should have been at the right hand of the Avatar, the ultimate authority who could bend the world to their will. Instead, he was alone, facing down great beasts of land and sea, the jaws closing in, encasing the kingdom in darkness. Kelsing yanked him back into the present, with a bruising slap to the back. Come on, he said. The way you look, people would think you're just lost your nation's most important cultural artifact. The airbender's good humor and ability to take setbacks in stride was normally a great comfort to Jianzu, but right now he wanted to punch his friend in his stupid bearded face. If he composed his own features. We need to go after her, he said. Kelsing pierced his lips. It would feel bad to take the relic away from a child who has so little. She can hang on to it. I'll go back to the temple and face Yori's wrath alone. There's no need for you to implicate yourself. Jianzu didn't want to know what counted with the wrath among airbenders, but that was the issue here. You'd ruined the air nomad test to make a child happy, he said incredulously. It'll find its way back to where it belongs. Kelsing looked back around, paused. Then his smile faded, as if the little blob of a town were a harsh dose of reality that was only now taking effect. Eventually, he sighed. Maybe. Okay, that's the first chapter. The next chapter is titled 9 Years Later, and I'm going to read that maybe tomorrow or whenever I can. So as always, I'll see you in the next video, and let me know what you think so far.